Fasano.
Good evening, Madam President. Madam President, on the bill before us, I do want to thank the Chair, Senator Needleman, and the Ranking Member, Paul Formica, for working together along with your co-chair and the ranking of the House in a cooperative fashion. I know this bill has had numerous reiterations, and that was a result of both of you keeping the door open and listening to people who bring different knowledge on the bill. And that's the way this chamber should work, and that's the reason why this bill is here before us in the best shape it could be. But Madam President, I'd like to take the opportunity, perhaps, to make it a little bit stronger, or better, I should say. I would ask the clerk to call LCO 4493.
Mr. Clerk.
Okay. Senate Amendment LCO number 4493 will be Senate Schedule A.
Senator Fasano.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the amendment and request permission to summarize.
Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, what this does is two things. First, it separates Pura from DEEP. In other words, we take Pura and we don't make it under DEEP. And number two, it places the Energy Conservation Management Board with Pura. But let's talk about the first one, because that to me is the most important. Years ago, Pura was separate than DEEP. And then under Governor Malloy's administration, Commissioner Esty, who was very knowledgeable in electricity, wrote a bunch of books, one of which, Green and Gold, which I did read, and the other two that came after it, which titles I can't recall. And his big issue was trying to get renewables and energy and focusing on the combination of environmental concerns and energy concerns and figuring out the best way to approach that. Madam President, with respect to that, Governor Malloy then made in a budget bill, as I recall, combining DEEP and then underneath that Pura. I would argue, Madam President, DEEP having environmental policies and Pura delivering electricity to consumers at a reasonable rate were on a collision course. You can't serve two masters. And the regulatory aspect of DEEP played into Pura, which plays into our electrical companies, causing them, I would argue, because of DEEP's influence, greater cost. Pura being unable to deliver what it is accountable for, which is energy at a reasonable rate, we're subject to different regulatory aspects as an environmental concern. I'm not saying the environmental concerns are not worthy. I'm not saying they shouldn't be followed. What I am saying is you need to separate them. And Pura runs the electrical, and DEEP could make the recommendations to Pura without the influence that it now has over Pura. And then it could be judged by Pura what they should take up and what they should not, based upon the evidence presented. Madam President, that's the essential element of this, to separate them, two separate functions as opposed to what we have now. I think that would serve this state well. I think there'd be open conversations regarding environmental concerns, which we could all weigh in on, both public and legislature, and determine a balance test for what we feel we need to do, as opposed to it being done through regulation, which a lot of us don't even know it's really happening out there. The second part is very nominal in that it takes a conservation management board, which DEEP is still on, but puts it under Pura and out of DEEP for the reasons that the first part really mandates that's where it should be. So, Madam President, I would move the adoption of this amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Fasano. Will you remark further on the amendment that is before us, Senator Needleman?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Fasano. I can't say that I haven't had the same thoughts, and I believe that our regulatory body, Pura, maybe should have a seat at the senior management table at the governor's office. I think that when those two were combined, They also combine energy and environment. It's a huge portfolio. And although there's a firewall between DEEP and PURA, I believe that this is something that we should absolutely look at next session. I think that Senator Formica and I and the House members were very careful about keeping the focus in this bill on rates and ratepayers. This is, I believe, a very worthwhile thing to consider. I just think that in the interest of staying focused on what we're doing, it would be great if we weren't dealing with this amendment now. So I don't disagree. I just think that we should be thinking about it in January, and you have my word that we will do that.
Thank you, Senator.
I'm going to miss you not being here.
Thank you, Senator Needleman. Senator Fasano.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I take Senator Needleman at his word, and I also had a conversation with Senator Formica, and I know both of them will have this on their agenda. I may not, well, not it may not, I will not be here. I may be up there watching from the gallery, but I take you for your word, and I thank you for thinking of that. Madam President, at this time, I will withdraw that amendment before this body.
Thank you, sir. With that, will you remark further on the bill? And Senator Fasano, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I do want to talk a little bit about the bill. I know why we're doing the bill. I get it. There has been a tremendous outcry. There's a tremendous public attention. There's been issues with storms. We saw this. This is a remake of the movie that we had back when we had Irene and Sandy. And we did a two-storm overview of everything, and perhaps it's fine to take a look at it again. And I think that we have this bill in front of us, but I think we should go further. I think it is premature to do this now, but it doesn't mean we should vote no on this. But I think it needs a lot more work in it that could not be done, not for the efforts of the folks in this chamber who led that discussion, but because energy is extraordinarily complicated. I think Paul Formica said it correctly in our caucus. It is a spider web of issues that are all over the place on energy. And it's going to take a long discussion. I think we'll be competent with the folks in this chamber to deal with it. It bothers me a little bit we're rushing it, because sometimes you take an issue off the table, people feel you did it, we don't have to revisit it, it's already been done. Certain folks who were with the electric company said, look, you already beat us up, why are you taking a second shot? You should have done it back in special session. That happens in this building. Don't let it happen. We need to look at energy seriously. A lot of people spoke about the high rate of energy. Let's be crystal clear. Crystal clear. The high rate of energy is a combination of things, not the least of which, I think Senator Fonfara might have mentioned it, and I think Senator Sampson might have mentioned it, is when we say we want to use renewables, which is a good idea, we have to be able to stand up in this Senate chamber and say, we are going to be renewables, but to be honest, it's going to cost us more. The efficiency on renewables is just not there. The cost of renewables are high. Now, that is a policy issue for all of us or all of you to decide next session. But you can't have it both ways. You can't tell the people we need to have energy renewable used, but we're upset that the rates are going to go up. They are coupled together irrespective. When you say you're going to reduce carbon emissions in 2035, I forget the date now, to zero, you got to say what is going to be that replacement and how much more is that going to cost? That's the question. How much more? To get to that, we've got to invest in certain higher cost energy, some of which we're going to be losers on investment. But if that's what we want to do, we have to be honest with the state of Connecticut and the people in it and say we own it. It isn't fair that we put the utility companies in a position because of our policies that the rate goes up, and when the people complain, we yell at them. That's just not fair. You need to stand up for what you believe in across the board. It was mentioned a couple times in this chamber that local municipal electric companies have the lowest rates. Wallingford just happens to be the town that I represent. They have low rates. One, as was correctly pointed out, at least in our conference inside our conference room, that because they don't pay property taxes on the property that they own, because it's municipal property. True. But the second and most important reason is they're deregulated. They're regulated, but not nearly as many mandates, not nearly as much regulation that we put on the utilities company that we, not Pura, we in this chamber add every single year. And then we're shocked when the rates go up. And then we blame the evil folks because we don't want to do it. Look, if we had the courage, this is what I would do. Why not let Pura make a recommendation to what the rates would be? Let it come to this chamber, and you vote it up or down. You vote it up or down. Let's be clear. The reason why Pura exists is for one reason. Way back when they said voting for increase in electrical rates is a death blow to re-elections. You don't want to be the guy to get the 5x7 card or the person to get the 5x7 card said you voted for a rate increase, even though you have to, because the thing will go broke unless you don't get a rate increase. But we don't want that. So we give it to Pura to do that dirty work. And then we yell at Pura or we yell at the electric companies, but not at us. So why don't we do it like we do the union contracts? Let Pura make the recommendation, let it go to the Energy Committee for a full hearing, let it come to the floor of the House and the Senate, and then we stand up and say yay or nay. That's courage. That's taking the responsibility for electrical rates in this chamber and downstairs in front of the public. I don't think that's going to happen. I did an amendment that I'm obviously not going to call that does that very thing. Because the cognizance of understanding the implications of our policies is what we have to understand as legislators. And we would know that when Pura comes in front of the Energy Committee and they say, why is it going up X? And they could say, here's why. And if it's our policies that's reflected in that going up, then we as a legislature have to say we got to change the policies. But we are immune to that because we could point fingers and we could stamp our feet, write letters to constituents that were mad about this rate increase and mad about that rate increase, and how dare they, but sit behind our desk and tell our constituents we're fighting for you. So we have to make decisions. And we have to be accountable for those decisions. And if those decisions are, we want more renewable energy at the cost of electricity, let's say it. Let's vote it. Let's say it. Let's come in here and vote for that. But let's not say, renewables are needed, but we're not going to talk about the consequences. That's the problem. That has to be looked at in the realm of everything else, because that is much part of the problem as any other problem that has been talked about in this circle since we started the debate on this bill. We have a policy that says everybody use a lot less electricity. Then when the use of electricity goes down, our rates go up because the use went down. So we're trying to get people to use less electricity, get them off the grid, right? That's the magic word, get them off the grid. And the more people get off the grid, the more it costs more it costs our consumers. Once again, something Senator Fonfara talked about a little bit. As that usage goes down, our rates have to go up. We got to break that. And I don't know enough about this stuff, as Paul said, the spider web effect. But that's something that you all have to look at next session. There is a lot of dynamics here based upon the way we approached electricity many, many years ago, and that's the effect we're seeing. So, Madam President, I am going to support this bill because I know people worked hard. I know they did. And they worked collaboratively, which is equally as important as working hard, and I thank them for that. And that allowed voices to be heard and the bill to be changed for the better. Obviously, as everyone said, there's a lot more work, but don't just focus the intention on distribution companies and Pura. Look at the attention that we're doing as policymakers in this Capitol that's equally adding to the problem. So thank you, Madam President. Once again, Senator Formica, Senator Needleman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Fasano. Will you remark